Good morning and welcome to yet another episode of the Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. Now, we've got a very special guest in the building today. When I first met this young man, he was on the come up at SB Nation. Look at him now. He's from the New York Daily News. Kristian Winfield, goodness. My guy. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. You know, I'm doing much better now that I'm talking to you. You feel me? Like you brighten up rooms, bro.
Yeah.
We miss you. We miss you, bro.
Yeah, I miss you too, man. I miss you seeing at NBA arenas, chopping it up with you during games, making funny comments,
hey,
all that.
Whoever's listening, whoever's watching this right now, if you don't know, this man's sneaker game is crazy. This man's fit game is crazy. I mean, top 10 best dressed NBA reporters of all time. Got it. Mount Rushmore. You can't have a Mount Rushmore of fashion in the NBA if you don't got my boy Nick on there.
My guy. I appreciate that. You know what? We actually, when we're normally in studio, you can't see me from the bottom half down. So now that you've given me that compliment, I'm going to have to talk to the guys and we're going to have to figure out something where you can see the whole fit, man. Because
you gotta do stand-ups. You gotta do a stand-up.
You gotta
have the drip check for you.
All right, Kristian, let's get into it, my man, because we've got a lot of NBA stuff to talk about. I do want to talk about the Knicks and the Nets because you are based in New York. You work for the Daily News, so you deal with those teams a lot. Before we get into that, though, I want to get your thoughts on the. It was a couple of days ago now, but I just want to get your thoughts on the LeBron James, Isaiah Stewart, Detroit Pistons. Sure. The suspensions have been handed out. LeBron got one game. Isaiah Stewart got a couple, got a big fine as well. What were your thoughts on that whole, brawl, I guess?
My first thought was, man, if the zombies hold an NBA draft and they take Isaiah Stewart #1, we're all screwed, man. That man was dragging people around the floor. And I mean, granted, when you see the real slow-mo replay of how LeBron's hand and fist connects with his eye, it's kind of crazy. And then you see how he's leaking all over the place. I mean, yeah, you'd be mad too, but there's got to be a line, right? And chasing a guy 3 separate times all across the floor and then trying to run into the back after he leaves the floor. I mean, that can't happen. But I mean, look, they handed out 2-game suspension for him. LeBron got a 1-game suspension, can't play at the Garden. I mean, that's punishment enough. I just hope, and none of them, this isn't Isaiah Stewart's first time, right, with this type of interaction with players. I wasn't there, but we watched when he knocked Blake Griffin to the ground and then stands over him when they go to Detroit. He had another run-in with Giannis, and then he needs somebody between the legs before. I mean, this is something that's happened with him before, so I think it's time for him to calm down a little bit. But this time around, when you get hit in the face like that and then you start bleeding, you know what I'm saying? I can understand why he saw red.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to have an unpopular take here, right? Sure. Because I do feel that
what else is new?
It wasn't inadvertent. Look, don't get me wrong. LeBron intended to make contact because he had a close fist. He went back. I think he was frustrated with, I just don't think he intended to hit him in the face. And LeBron's come out and, I think he said that he tried to apologize to him afterwards and all that sort of stuff. But the downside is no LeBron at MSG tonight. We're going to get onto the Knicks in a second. Let's start with the Brooklyn Nets, Kristian. Beat Cleveland 117-112. They're 13-5 on the season. Kevin Durant is obviously doing Kevin Durant things. Kristian, are they the team to beat in the East?
I mean, that's tough, right? Because you look at their record, and I've written about this before. You look at their record, they've beaten the not so good teams, right? When you look at their record against great teams, they've lost to the Warriors. They've lost to the Miami Heat. They lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost to the Bulls, even though it was the second game of back-to-back. They've beaten teams that, they're supposed to beat. So are they the team to beat right now? I mean, yes, because they're the #1 seed. At least maybe they might be the #1 seed. I don't know what the tiebreaker situation is right now. They're 13-5. So record-wise, they are the team to beat. But when you look at the other teams that are also, quote unquote, the teams to beat, when you look at the Warriors, when you look at the top teams in the East and just across the NBA, I asked Steve Nash, I said, hey, are you at all concerned with your team's inability to beat these teams? And he goes, hey, we're not one of those best teams just yet. We have a ways to go. So yes, when you look at it on paper, they have Kevin Durant, they have James Harden. We don't know if Kyrie Irving is coming back or when that might happen. They're still a tough team to beat, yes, but I still think they have strides to make. They still have to get tighter on offense. Their defense has, drastically improved from last season. But if they're going to beat teams like Miami, who they've had the culture in place for decades now, if they're going to beat a team like the Warriors, who've had that same culture in place for a while now, they've got to build that. They're still searching for that identity. I think that's the next step for them.
Well, you mentioned Kyrie Irving, right? And, the Nets big three went down to a big two all of a sudden. Sure. We've got to give a shout out to our guy, Patty Mills, who has stepped up very nicely.
Sure. Absolutely.
Playing some key minutes. But Kyrie Irving is a big loss, Kristian. What are you hearing in terms of, whether he will be available? What's the situation with the vaccine mandate in New York? Does that look like it's going to be, taken away, or what's going on there?
Well, the odds of Kyrie coming back took a really big blow when Eric Adams, who's the new mayor, said he's not going to grant any exemptions, right? Like the vaccine mandate is the vaccine mandate. And now he's also saying something along the lines of he's going to grant religious exemption for city workers, right? And city workers means police officers, firefighters, teachers, people of that nature. But I don't think an NBA player quite categorizes as a city worker just yet. So right now we're in a weird space right now, because if I was a betting man, I'm putting my money on Kyrie Irving not getting vaccinated, right? He's come out and said that's not what he's going to do. And we don't know if the NBA is going to change their stance right now. So far, the NBA is deferring to local governments, right? Like if Bradley Beal's unvaccinated, but he can play in DC because DC doesn't have a vaccine mandate. New York is not the same. So at this point, the Nets are kind of just trying to wait right now. They're holding out hope that something changes along the lines, whether that's Kyrie Irving's just, willingness to get vaccinated or it's a city ordinance or whatnot. But that trade deadline, once you pass that, you can't get anything back for him. And then on top of that, he could be a free agent next year. He's got a $30-something million player option that he could opt into or opt out of. You don't want to lose him for nothing. And then on top of that, you need to replace that somehow because, Steve Nash and Sean Marks have both said that this is a team that was built around having three superstars, right? And now you've only got two and you're trying to plug in the gaps. And don't get me wrong, Kevin Durant and James Harden are still really good. But what made the Nets unfair was that then you had Kyrie Irving, a guy who can give you 27 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, break the defense down. And they're trying to figure out how to play without him, but it's not the same team.
No, it's definitely not the same team. And we spoke about Patty Mills. He has done a great job in the minutes that he's been starting of late as well. You've done a couple of pieces on Patty Mills this season. You've spoken to him a little bit. What have you seen from Patty, Kristian, that's really impressed you the most? He's
just a charming guy, man. He just knows how to win over a crowd every time. He's just got that aura about him. Just love talking to him. He brings that pedigree. He came from San Antonio. I believe he won a championship there in 2014. My year might not be correct, but they definitely won a championship there with him. He just he knows what's needed. And I thought he was just all offense, right? He's a guy who's also going to get out there and play some defense. He's scrappy. He's got active hands. And then Joe Harris has been out so far with a sprained left ankle. Patty Mills is starting these hidden threes, and he's kind of like a flamethrower. If he hits one or two, his first 2 games, he went 7-7 against the Bucks in his first game. Then he went 3 of 3. He's a guy who get hot and then stay hot, and the Nets are going to need him the entire season, especially as we just spoke about. No Kyrie, you've got guys going down. LaMarcus Aldridge has played really well, but you still need that other guy in the backcourt who can produce, and Patty's been reliable so far. I love that for him.
Yeah, and he set a couple of team records, I believe, for 3-pointers made or consecutive 3-pointers made. And then I think he was made 9 3-pointers in a game last week, which is a team record. The thing I like about Patty and what he brings to the Nets is, that professionalism. You touched on it.
Absolutely.
He comes from an organization like the Spurs and the famed Spurs culture, and he's got a championship ring. So I believe there's only 2 players on the active Nets roster right now that have championship rings, and that's Kevin Durant and Patty Mills. So if you're trying to win a championship, you definitely need guys like that on the team. And I believe Steve Nash has alluded to the fact that part of the reason they did bring Patty in was for that reason, right?
Yeah, and what won me over with Patty was when I believe he did his Zoom introductory press conference. He was already back in Australia. This was after the Olympics. And he said, man, the one thing I'm looking forward to most is getting to Brooklyn and trying out all the coffee shops. You know what I'm saying? After that, I'm like, hey, listen, he's got a W in my book already.
Yeah, Kristian, you remember how many years I was telling you American coffee is trash, right? So Patty knows that. Patty knows that. So he's just looking to find the right coffee shop.
Yeah, he's got to find the one for. I'm not a coffee person. You know what I'm saying? I like my green tea. I like my hot chocolate. You feel me? But Patty knows. Patty's just great, man. It's just a different energy in the locker room. It's a different energy in terms of talking to the media. And then one thing, every time he speaks, you know he's going to give a thoughtful answer. You know, his answer might go a little long because he loves to paint his words with all types of stuff. But great guy, you know what I'm saying? Great addition to the roster for sure.
He absolutely is. And please, next time you see him, tell him I said hello. I haven't seen him for a while.
I will send you regards.
Yes, please do. Let's get on to the New York Knicks, right?
Sure.
Now, New York Knicks, great start. The excitement was back at the Garden, that whole bing bong, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
They're kind of slumping a little bit at the moment, 9-8. They're playing the Lakers minus a LeBron today. They're ranked 19th in defensive rating, 11th in offensive rating. 19th for defensive rating for a Tom Thibodeau coach team is very unusual. What is going on with the Knicks right now, Kristian?
Oh, man, I think what we saw early on was the best of things, right? And what we're seeing now is when you start coming down. And what the example I've used before is, you know, Kemba Walker got off to such a hot start, but that's not who he is. You know, he's not someone that's going to shoot 55% from the field, 50% from three. You know, he's someone that's going to trend closer towards like 40% field goal shooting and maybe 37% from three. And those numbers, you know what I'm saying? The law of averages is going to play out. And that's kind of how it goes with the entire team. Evan Fournier, he can fill it up in bunches, but he's not a guy that's going to be a flamethrower all season. He's going to be hot and cold. And when you're running lineups that have Kemba in them, I mean, call a spade a spade. The man's never really been the strongest defender at the point of attack, which is the point guard position. And that kind of opens up holes in the rest of the defense. So I think what we're seeing right now is Tom Thibodeau. And then on top of that, just the Knicks bench brings so much energy every time. You know, I think Tom Thibodeau has to kind of figure out what that ideal rotation looks like. Do you start Derrick Rose, which is probably what they should be doing? Do you keep starting Evan Fournier? Do you go to a different lineup? I think Tom Thibodeau, this is also still somewhat of a new team, especially when you factor in the new faces that you brought in. I think they have to figure out how all their pieces work together. And I think just like anything, it's going to take some time.
I think you touched on it there. You know, look, I'm a Kemba Walker fan, right? I think he's a great guy.
So am I, yeah.
You know, and he's a great guy, a great player. Injuries have taken their toll on him. He's 100%. No longer that sort of, you know, explosive guy that can get to the bucket and all that sort of stuff. Derrick Rose comes in whenever he plays, and you just feel like he's orchestrating that offense and orchestrating everything on the floor so nicely. Is that something that Tom Thibodeau is going to have to look at now? I mean, you just alluded to it a little bit, but, you know, maybe putting Derrick Rose in there, bringing Kemba off the bench as a sixth man, as that sort of spark plug off the bench. If it is a confidence issue with Kemba, you know, maybe sort of work his way back up to getting some confidence and then bring him back into the starting lineup. I don't know how that works, but obviously Tom's going to have to make some changes, isn't he?
Yeah, and you know, Kemba's played for a bunch of different coaches at this, but I don't think he's played for a handful of coaches. Derrick Rose, he knows what Tom Thibodeau wants, right? They played for each other in Chicago, and then he played with them in New York before this stint. I mean, it just makes sense it's kind of like what Steve Nash likes to call institutional knowledge, right? Derrick Rose knows what Tom Thibodeau wants. I think not only is Kemba still trying to figure that out, he's still trying to find his own game. Remember, Kemba got traded to the Thunder when he was with the Celtics, right? He was supposed to be part of that, of turning that organization around. They kind of just ditched him to the Thunder, and he's kind of trying to refine himself. And New York is a great place to do that. That's home. But if you're not playing well in New York, the fans are going to let you know. And as we're finding out, so is Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau's not holding back. He's saying, hey, the starters are playing like garbage, 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 like garbage. Garbage, like garbage, like garbage. Like garbage, like
we've lost. I think we've lost Kristian there. We're going to try and get him back as soon as possible. I guess in the meantime, let's take a look at some odds for today's games. We have got the Miami Heat and the Detroit Pistons. Miami Heat, $1.23 favorites there. The Detroit Pistons, $4.50. The line is at 9. The total is at 208.5. Pistons coming off a loss to the Lakers, but Cade Cunningham recorded his first triple-double the other day. I'm still liking Miami with this one here. Next game we've got up is the Lakers and the Knicks this morning. No LeBron James. The Knicks are favorites here, $1.42. Lakers 305. The line's at 6.5. The total is at 214. That game is live on ESPN. The Knicks lost to the Bulls the other day, but they're facing a team without LeBron James now. The Lakers still struggling with chemistry issues. They've got a whole bunch of things to figure out. So I could be biased, but I'm going to go with the Knicks in a close one at home. Their next game up on the agenda, we have the Portland Trail Blazers hosting the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are the walking wounded right now. Portland Trail Blazers, $1.37 favorites. They're the Denver Nuggets, $3.30. The line's at 6 and the total's at 215. We've got Kristian back now. So let's.
What up? Sorry, I don't know what happened. My laptop just cut off out of nowhere.
That's all right. That's all right. We're back. So we'll finish up with Kristian and then we'll go back to the odds as well. So we lost you halfway through there, but we were just talking about the Knicks. The backcourt does need maybe a little bit of a switch up, and Tom Thibodeau's got to figure that out. Evan Fournier as well is not really playing up to that level that Knicks fans expected. Another guy that I want to talk about who is the franchise player essentially is Julius Randle.
Sure.
And he's kind of been up and down this season as well, hasn't he, Kristian? He had 34 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists against the Bulls the other day. Was that kind of a game that's going to help get his season back on track?
I mean, you would hope so. But what I'm learning is that defenses are starting to respect Julius Randle a little bit more, right? Because yes, he had that meltdown in the playoffs last year, but what we saw from him in the regular season and even in the preseason earlier this year, I mean, that's a guy that you could run offense through, you can see the maturation of his game to where he's reading what defenses are doing and then making the decision based on that. Like the defenses are sending help at him and he's knowing where the help is coming from before the help even comes. I mean, if that's not showing you how advanced he's getting, but I mean, at the same time, it's a long NBA season, you know what I'm saying? And I still, and I'm going to have to say this, I don't think he's a player that you can build. I don't think that can be the best player on your team, right?
I agree. I think he's more of a number 2 guy.
Yeah, number 2 or a number 3 in that boss role, right? Like you want, I'm going to keep saying this, you want Damian Lillard, right? If I'm the Knicks, I'm putting together whatever package I can to try to get Damian Lillard. But I mean, Dame, he doesn't want to go anywhere. He wants to be here. So right now, the Knicks just have to build what they have. That's RJ Barrett, that's Julius Randle. You're hoping that one between Kemba and D Rose steps up. And they've got some young guys, you know what I'm saying? Quentin Grimes and McBride, all those guys, they can come in, they can hit threes and play some defense, just about stringing that together. And as long as Mitchell Robinson is in there patrolling the paint as well, and he can stay healthy and out of foul trouble, I like the Knicks' chances this year.
Mitchell Robinson really changes the dynamic of that team, doesn't he, when he's in there? He's just that rim protector, defensive presence as well. We'll see. It's a long season. We're almost 20 games into the season. Still a long way to go. We'll see how it plays out for the Knicks. Kristian, we've got to get going, but we always do some predictions before we end the show. All right, so we're going to start again. I was just reading the odds out a little bit earlier, but we're going to start again with the Heat and the Pistons. Like I said, Pistons coming off to a loss to the Lakers, but Cade Cunningham has been balling out. Miami $1.23 favorites, Pistons $4.50, line at 9. The total is at 208. I'm going with Miami pretty easily in this one, Kristian.
Yeah, so am I. I don't care how good Cade Cunningham has been balling. He ain't got nothing for those Heat. Jimmy Butler gonna shut him down. That defense has been there for decades. He's not gonna fit. They're gonna have him flustered.
Yeah, they will. They certainly will. Next game up is the Lakers and the Knicks at MSG. Always a good game, even if the biggest names are not always playing. No LeBron, so the Knicks are big favorites here, $1.41. Kristian, I actually look. The Knicks are coming off that loss to the Bulls, but I do think they win tonight in a close one.
I don't know. I'm thinking Melo might try to go for 50. Remember how the Knicks did him? The Knicks did him dirty on the way out. I know he didn't forget. I'm putting my money on the Lakers. I think Melo's going to have a great game.
50 for Melo. You know what? Remember that game that he had 61 at the Garden?
Listen,
that was like,
come on, we know he can do it.
That was like one of the only games at the Garden that I missed that year, and I was so mad.
That was legendary, man. That was such a great performance.
Next game up, we've got the walking wounded Denver Nuggets. They're going to the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland, $1.38 favorites. Miami, $3.25. Michael Porter Jr., he's got maybe a nerve issue in his back, could potentially be out for the season. Nikola Jokic. I mean, Portland got this, don't they, Kristian? Easily.
Yeah. Another one, Portland is 8-1 at home this year. You know what I'm saying? They've had more struggles on the road than at home. I'm looking at them to really clean up against the Nuggets tonight, especially if the Nuggets are shorthanded. Like it's no, I don't want to say it's no contest because any team could be any team, but I don't think they're gonna let that one go.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think the Nuggets, the Blazers easily. And the last game we've got is the Mavericks and the Clippers. The Clippers are $1.61, Mavericks $2.42. The line's at 4, totals at 210. Clippers 7-3 in their last 10. Mavericks are 5-5 and have lost 3 straight. No Luka Doncic. Kristaps, though, a former Knick, has actually been playing pretty well for them since he's been back from injury, but I think the Los Angeles Clippers have got this one today.
Kristaps could be playing like Shaq mixed with Arvydas Sabonis, and they still wouldn't get that dub. I'm sorry, gotta put your money on the Clippers because as much as I like the Mavericks, without Luka, that team's not gonna stand a chance.
Yeah, there you go. Kristian says, bet the house and all your belongings on the Los Angeles Clippers.
Don't bet your Bitcoin, though. Save your crypto. Do not
save the crypto. There you go. All right, my guy, Kristian, thank you so much for joining us and blessing us with your presence. We will be back on Friday morning with another show. BK will be joining us. This has been the Last Shot NBA show. I am Nick Metallinos. We shall see you on Friday.